Let's talk about silos, baby. Okay, welcome everybody. We are back today on the B2B Growth Lab. We are having a discussion, a discourse, possibly a bit of ranting on cross-department blind spots, why your team members don't know how the company works. Because one of the fastest ways to create inefficiency and ineffectiveness is hiring a person into a silo. You get situations where sales doesn't understand delivery, where marketing doesn't understand onboarding, where customer success doesn't understand lead generation, and where leadership wonders why everything feels so disconnected, why growth is so hard, why we keep on spending more and not getting anything in return, why we keep on spending more and not getting anything in return. Signal number one. In this episode, we're going to talk about how high-performing companies, low-performing companies, brand new startups all suffer from the exact same things. They do not expose their team members to the entire customer journey. They give them an individual role, and due to that lack of comprehension about what happens before and after the work that they do, growth is stuck inside of those silos. There are all sorts of hidden costs. There is friction across it. There are blind spots to a degree that you should probably double your trip and fall insurance on site. Onboarding should introduce every single department to a team member. When you do this stuff, you could build empathy and collaboration across teams. You remove the us and them and the they stuff. Plus, you could create a customer-centric culture from day one, which is how companies win. I know for a fact that the average time cost of getting people to go from not doing that to doing that is 18 months. So why not move yourself a year and a half ahead from the beginning? So today we're hoping that after we finish chomping down on the stick and just not saying certain things out loud, you'll walk away with a framework of cross-functional onboarding, better alignment between your teams, a more connected customer experience, and just a general sense of relief because you know there's hope for whatever it is you're trying to grow. Rob, let's talk about cross-functional awareness. Let's start with that. Let's start creating a definition of this whole crazy scenario that we're aiming towards.
Well, there's a number of different engagement surveys out there that would give you this insight, right? So let's start with a diagnostic, a measurement in your culture, and you can ask questions like, I understand what's happening in the upstream and downstream parts of the business. I understand the entire fulfillment journey. I understand how my job directly relates to the performance of the mission and the goals of the company, right? Those kinds of questions you could measure. You can measure the sort by department, and you could see where your silos are. Now, if you are willing to lean into a little bit of open text rather than a quantifiable kind of question, go with a qualifiable, right, data producing question. You could say, which departments do you have the worst relationship with? Number one answer on the board, typically sales.
Right.
And why is that? Because sales tends to put up their own silo.
Right.
So then you get things like operations says, well, sales just treats us like we're garbage. They feel disrespected. They'll put that on that survey, right? And then those of us who know how to fix these things, we do things like put recognition programs in place for $5 a team member. And then we track and we report on who's giving recognition. Well, sales doesn't want to be last. They want to be first, right? So they're going to climb to the top of that leaderboard, and they're going to break down the walls of their silo, and they're going to fix their own damn problem with operations.
You know, that's brilliant.
So that's
and
the mic drop, right?
There's a sales mantra, which is, if you're not first, you're last.
Right.
Yeah, that's a like mission critical sales belief. They don't believe in second place, so I think your problem solving there is brilliant. It's pure genius. They will win that race if you put them in it.
Right. You just got to make sure their win equals the win.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah. No, that is a brilliant shift of frame. I mean, we're done. That we can end the episode on that. That is a strong enough move that it will move the needle itself. I want to talk about lead generation for a sec, because I had an experience Q4 last year. We got pulled into one of the very few enterprise scopes that we do, and I know why we don't do them after that experience. We were only there to talk about lead generation. So when we were faced with this situation, which is our lead generation stack costs $1.2 million a year, and we're getting 30 cents back on each dollar we spend.
Okay.
As the problem we were posed with, you know, we assumed the question was, and we want to know why. And so we started asking questions about, like, well, what happens after a lead gets generated? Like, where are the conversion steps, and how does sales close, and what's the cost of acquisition, and how are you getting this 30 cents back measurement? And the answer was, none of that matters. We're here to talk about leads. So we tried to level the playing field. And so what we ended up doing was just an assessment of the stack of tools, because that was the only real data we had to measure. What's the cost of each of these things? Because you have 9 subscriptions that create this annual spend of 1.2 million. And what we ended up with was kind of a legacy situation. We couldn't figure out who decided to subscribe to what to when, because we weren't allowed to ask questions about what happened after they got a lead. But out of the 9 platforms, 3 had a distinct overlap. They were doing the exact same jobs in parallel. And it wasn't because it was like, hey, let's build 2 machines and test them against each other. And it wasn't because let's A/B test each one of these things. There was no contest for the platforms to be winners in at all. Which probably indicates why they're only getting 1/3 of a return.
Right.
So our advice was cancel these 3. And we multiplied that cost by 12 and told them 1/4 of that was our consulting fee, and we ended it. That was our ability to problem solve at that level. And I'm just using this to give a very long explanation of how expensive that silo is, because it's the clearest example of living inside of that silo I have ever seen, with the biggest amount of zeros behind it I have ever seen. I'm sure there's more out there, but to any of you out there, like whoever's in charge of your financial reporting, your accountant, a CFO, take your last 3 months of financials, look at all those outputs, look at all the subscriptions, and please, anything that hasn't been logged into for 45 days, just cancel it without even question. Start there immediately. because if you don't do it, you have it. I promise. And that's just a dumbed down version of a silo that you can solve immediately. It's a little bit of a tangent, but I think it's valuable. And then at least you can start spending time doing the stuff that Rob's talking about and start having diagnostics and conversations about what's left. How would you apply this exact same thing to people?
Oh, before we go there, Jacob, I want to do you one worse. One worse from a system perspective, right? So let's say you're a giant kind of multi-divisional pharmaceutical and food provider, developer, right? You have a very elegant outside brand. You produce TV commercials, right? You make people's lives better. And then inside, you have 32 different instances of the same terrible LMS.
Okay.
Not domains within an instance, but 32 different installed, cloud-based, paid for under contract instances of a terrible LMS. Because everybody in their silo can have whatever tech they want, and everyone wants the control, so they spend the money and the time, and they stand up their own instance. And you're like, well, Rob, that's not that bad. Well, except for the fact that then you want to integrate Workday, post-implementation of Workday, as a source of record for who works there, right? You want to say, well, I want to save those labor hours. Well, if I only had one instance with multiple domains, and the who belongs lives at that level, I have to do one integration. But since we let everyone have their own silo and their own LMS, now that integration project is 32x. Now I have to parse data before I can store it in the secure data transfer, right? Now I have more work before, I have more integration in middleware, I have more time suck on the back end, right? It's just the cost of what we're talking about today is real in human capital, it's real in system costs, it's real in customer outcomes. It is just, silos are incredibly painful. It's just most of it is soft and hidden, and therefore people ignore it. But it's real.
You gave me a visualization, and it was, I live in a 100-year-old house. And instead of upgrading the wiring, I'm just going to start running extension cords around the home.
Right.
And hope that no one ever spills a drink. And that I guess no one will be mopping the floor anytime soon. Wow.
And then when I mentioned this, their feedback to me was, Rob, stop thinking like the chief learning officer. And I said, that's not leadership, right? Telling people to stop thinking a certain way is not leadership. That's insecurity spoken out loud. So, no thank you. We need to talk to the IT department and break down the silo walls and rationalize our data set and get lean and mean and more profitable. If I was a shareholder, I would be humiliated. I'd be embarrassed. I'd be pissed. Right? You're paying 32 times for one thing? You got to be kidding me. Right?
You're touching on something really, really important right now. I do want to get back to the people stuff, but let's touch on the tech side once more. We have a rule. We have several rules for clients around technology. But when investigating, like before purchasing, thou shalt weigh not what it does, but what else does it talk to as a major factor in your buying decision.
Yes.
Because that siloing of data is painfully common as well.
Painfully.
Yeah.
And it's so hard not to just throw shade, right?
Yeah.
Like, yay, it's natively integrated with the HRIS components. Yay! Except that giant 800-pound gorilla that just sold you their LMS that way, with that angle, also doesn't play with anyone else in the sandbox. There is no API call. It's not written in HTML5 or higher, right? It's just another 800-pound gorilla that doesn't play well with others.
Yeah.
So yes, siloed data. There you go. You saved a few bucks, but you're shooting yourself in the foot.
Yeah, to a significant degree.
Right.
Significant degree. Let's
we
start
can't buy
focusing.
best in class. We have to choose cheap because we're only 10% profitable on the bottom line. Oh, you have okay. So now we have a business problem that we're addressing by making poor, cost-efficient choices. Right. Don't fix the business problem. Continue the downward spiral. Good luck with that.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah. It is too common.
Too common.
So how about the silos amongst people? Right. This is obviously a huge point in friction.
Yeah. Too many leaders are control focused rather than leader focused. Right? So what does that mean, right? There's two concepts. So if you ever hear from a leader, you need to talk to me first before you talk to my people, they're a silo creator. Right? If they were a leader rather than a control freak, and they had a good enough relationship with their people that they had psychological safety, openness, and transparency, well then, if when that other leader came to talk to them, they would go say, hey boss, I just wanted to let you know, Rob from accounting showed up and he wanted to talk about a blankety blank. Cool, thanks so much. So what do you think about that, right? Like, you don't silo your people because of your own insecurity and control issues. So please put your people out in the world, create a good enough relationship that they feel safe and respected, and you'd be surprised what they will do for you, how loyal they'll be, right? How much quality and productivity they produce. Yeah, it's real in the human domain too.
Yeah. So what are some of the ways that we start to discover where this limitation is turning into an expense? Because I think that's one of the things I've talked to a lot of founders in the last couple of weeks. Like it's just been that space, right? Guys who've done an exit, guys who are just starting out, but they're across the board, that vibe because they're all like, I'm too busy. Which is that state. Like it's almost a qualifier, right? Do you feel like you're too busy, strung out, and on the seat of your pants? Oh, you are a founder. Congratulations. You're in the right spot. But one of the things that comes from it is I don't have time to address this. And, we've already discussed like the cost of addressing it now is significantly lower compared to the cost of fixing it later. But sometimes if you can't see the cost, you don't feel motivated to address it.
Yeah, so how do you see the cost?
Yeah.
Well, HR would say it's engagement survey. Okay. Shake hands with your IT organization and do something called network analysis. And when you do network analysis the right way, you can start to see a few different things. You can see which leaders are promoting their organization as silos, because when you aggregate the data, their organizations will have the least amount of networked connectivity, right? So that's the first insight we're talking about. Now let's talk about the insight for the solution. Those individual people among the herd who have both the longest and greatest number of connections are the people working against the silos. They're your MVPs in installing the right kind of psychologically safe and connected culture.
Got it.
So you know who your bad players are, you know who your good players are, and in a modern IT world, that kind of network analysis, not that hard.
How do you get those people to play together?
Well, the solution I mentioned earlier with a very affordable recognition program is part of it.
Okay.
Right? That's one lever you can pull. The other thing that we did is in leadership development programs, we intentionally sat people in pods with people from the department where they did not have good relationships. And then when the classes were over, everyone was assigned a peer coach. Well, guess where that peer coach was located? Outside their department. Right? So very intentionally, when we did problem-solving training, we put people on teams composed of people outside their department. And we assigned them projects outside their department. And when we did executive development, we had to have intentional job rotation. Well, we assigned them outside their department, right? So we're winning not just in terms of, call it the first person experience of the silo, but you're also winning in terms of the overall outcomes and third party perspective of the silo.
So I'm here. It froze for a sec, but the audio's been good the whole time. So I'm going to alliterate, but we have like problem-solving pods that are across.
All right, so let's wrap this up. If you need help fixing silos in your culture, talk to Jacob, talk to me. We've got solutions. We're here to help you heal your culture. Oh, you're back, Jacob. Here we go.
Yep.
No, you're gone.
I mean, audio's been good the whole time. Maybe try turning off your camera. Well,
is that better?
Yeah, let's give it a shot. Like I said, I haven't lost you on audio yet, so.
Okay. All right, no worries. No worries. So yeah, I'm getting off the soapbox, but we got to fix all of it.
But problem-solving pods that are across the different roles.
That's right.
Right? And you call it teamwork, you call it training, you call it casual Friday, but you get the people from the different spots somehow working together as part of a game. And you are, by definition, removing those silos simply by having them in the same room at the same time. All right. So I think that was the death of the signal, but we got some pretty solid stuff in today, and most of it I think is implementable. A lot of things Robert's talking about do not require a second, a third layer of thinking to it. They could go to work immediately. And overall, that's our primary goal here, is to put things across the table that can be picked up and run with, because it's better to implement one thing and get a 1, 2, or 3% change than have a list of 10 things that require 10 steps that never get done. So thank you all for your time. And thank you, Rob, for taking a break on the road to be with us today. I know you were in office somewhere else for someone else, and appreciate you joining us. Thank you, and be well.